Yeah, oh yeah.
Well, that's,
Yeah, oh yeah.
That's how, how else are you going to start a show, honestly?
I'm excited to be talking to you and Barry, Chris. This is awesome.
Hey, Barry, what are we going to need to really get this show, specifically this session with Travis Hill? You see how I called it a session? It's only taken me 60 sessions to remember. Barry, what are we going to need to really do it right this time?
You're going to need a couple of horses or a couple of mules.
Really?
I forgot my mules.
I'm not sure how that's going to help. What else are we going to need?
Saws, hammers, nails,
Really?
This is going to be a lot of work.
Anything else?
monkeys, pumas. Yeah.
That's my favorite one. Monkeys, pumas. Yeah.
Barry's coming prepared.
He's there. All right, let's do this. Yes. Get ready. Yes, because Travis Hill is here. I'm sure you wake up every morning and go to podcastmic.com and see Travis's latest microphone review. I mean, they are spectacular. I found them on YouTube. Anyway, welcome to the show. It's the Podcast Engineering Show. My name's Chris Curran. I produce podcasts for the likes of Eat Plus and Forbes and Dun & Bradstreet, as well as other companies and business authors. Every week on this show, we bring you podcast production techniques in a golden goblet. That's right. We get down and dirty. We talk shop with podcast producers, engineers, and other specialists. And I have a background in audio engineering, and when I came into podcasting about 5 years ago, I noticed that most podcasters, well, pretty much all podcasters, and most podcast producers really don't have a strong audio engineering background, kind of fundamental, the fundamentals of audio. There's no background there. So that's why I started this show, because I have a background in the music industry, producing music and all that. And you can check out the site and see all my album credits and all that stuff. It's podcastengineeringschool.com. And so anyway, that's what this show's for. You don't have to be an audio engineer to produce podcasts and do your own podcast. But look, all these little tips and tricks help a lot. And especially today, we're going to talk to Travis about, trying out different mics and also the processing of the mics. I've been going crazy lately with a bunch of new plugins, but I think I finally put my foot down because I just bought the FabFilter Pro Q2. It's the EQ plugin from FabFilter, and it's awesome. It's a little expensive, but it's really awesome. Travis, have you used that one?
I have not used that one, Chris. No.
Yeah, one of our other previous guests, I forget who, he uses it, and he was swearing by it, and he was like, "Oh, it's the best EQ and everything." And then I recently just met a music engineer locally here in Colorado Springs, and he was saying how that's one of his favorite plugins because it's so you can manipulate the EQing in more than you can in other EQs. And I'm actually going to make a little video about that for my podcast engineering school students. And I might make a video with all my new plugins just to put out into the world for all you guys to hear. But by the way, before we started this session, you heard me talk about the upcoming podcast engineering school. Anyway, let's do it. Travis Hill, Navigate Life Radio. That's your show.
Yeah, oh yeah.
Navigate
right,
Life Radio.
Yeah,
That's it.
yeah.
And that's your podcast. You also do it live?
So when I started it about a little over a year ago, I've been podcasting on and off for a few years at this point. And I wanted to do a podcast for my private practice. I'm a licensed professional counselor by trade, and wanted to do a podcast and a show associated with it where I'm just kind of giving advice, on general things, relationships, things like that. And I thought, well, why not, add some Facebook Live in there, make sure it goes out on YouTube, things like this. So it's a podcast. You can download it on iTunes and the like, but there's a YouTube channel for it. It's on Facebook, so it's video also on top of the audio. Nice.
And so you also have podcastmic.com. That's podcast and then MIC for mic.com. And that's how I found you. And I mentioned you in previous sessions of the show. And I didn't mention your name because I actually didn't know your name. Your name is not anywhere. Are you like a secretive person?
No. Well, for me, podcastmike.com is a hobby. I do it for fun. And so I don't mind my name being out there. It was just more like, I think I did what everybody else does, Chris, where you kind of scour the internet and check out YouTube for microphone reviews, and because you always want to find that perfect microphone. and so looking at some of the reviews, I thought, well, this one's okay, or this one seems like it's already pre-processed, and all that stuff. And so I thought, you know what, I kind of like microphones. I'm just going to do a channel myself and just get as many mics as I can and start running reviews. It's unprocessed audio. I mean, I adjust the loudness, but it's unprocessed audio. And so I'm just throwing out tons of microphones out there, just the ones that I think people are most likely to use for podcasting and, broadcasting and stuff like that. So yeah, I just said, well, I'll just do my own channel. And that was kind of how that got started. So it was funny. You and I kind of hooked up because you had mentioned you had been watching reviews on the internet of this guy who reviews microphones, and you mentioned the Rode Broadcaster, and I'm like, that sounds like me. There's not a lot of Rode Broadcaster reviews out there. So I just emailed you and was like, hey, are you talking about my show? And you said, yeah, that was it. And so that's how this session got started.
And I really like your mic reviews, the way you do it, because a lot of times you'll actually put two mics like kind of back to back, but you won't just talk into it. Like you actually talk out some of the specs of the mic, and as you're talking, we can hear the mic. And then what I love the most is you actually turn the mic sideways, then you turn it backwards, and to check out the rear rejection. And it I don't know, just the way you do it, and you do it pretty quick too. It doesn't take a long time.
No, I figure, people are, like you said, people are hearing the audio as I'm reviewing the microphone and kind of reading out the specs for it and this kind of thing. So you're getting both at the same time. And so, yeah, I can keep the videos pretty short. They're all between, 5 to 10 minutes long,
right?
Something like that.
Yeah, none of them are real long. Even the ones where you do two mics, they're not that long.
And that's actually one of the mics where I compared the SM57 and the SM7B, because I just checked the stats, has actually become the most popular video I've put out there. So people like that review.
Barry, of course, is here with me. Barry's the maintenance guy in my old building, and it's not Barry White, it's Barry. And I just, well, I don't know when this session's going to be published, but I just tweeted out an actual picture of me and Barry. I took an Ussie.
I've got to see this.
Yeah, right before I don't know when it was, before I was leaving. Yeah, it was before I was leaving. I was like, I had to get some picture of Barry with me, so I took an Ussie and I just tweeted it. It's so the Twitter handle is @podcastengineer. Anyway, and the people are like, that's really Barry? I even hashtagged it with hashtag that's actually Barry. So stupid. Barry. Anyway, all that, Barry. See, Barry, I had to introduce you properly because I want to ask you this question. Do you think Travis Hill is his real name, or is
No way. You crazy?
Yeah, see, he's undercover. He's secretive. Something's going on here. Anyway.
So my name's out there actually. So that's my real name. And it's out there because with the work that I do, that's I'm licensed under that name and all of that. So yeah, I don't get to do like cool secret names like Mike Delgadio and stuff like that.
Nice. So. Ebenezer. Beauregard. Hey, no, because what happened is I went twice. I've done this. I've gone to YouTube and searched for Travis Hill podcast mic, and it doesn't come up. So, but anyway, I know your name.
Put the name
so, there. Yeah. Anyway, all right. So, Navigate Life Radio. That's your show, and we're going to talk about that. We're going to start with the speed round, which is where you're just going to quickly overview your whole production workflow from. Literally, from pressing record and you start talking. What mic are you talking into? Where is it flowing? Where do your guests come in? Do you have a mixer? And then does it flow to a computer? Do you record it there? And then briefly how you do post production and all the way up until the final MP3.
All right. So I hope everybody's ready to take some notes.
Let's do this. Hey Barry,
yeah,
I don't expect this, but. You don't think Travis is going to be boring, do you?
There's no activity, no giggle, no nothing.
All right. Anyway.
Man, Barry's rough.
All right. Go ahead, Travis.
That's good. All right. So right now I'm going into the Rode Broadcaster microphone. You're listening to the Rode Broadcaster, and it's attached to a Rode boom arm, and the mic goes into a DBX 286S, and I do process all that audio going in, and then that goes into a Focusrite Scarlett 2i2, and then that plugs into my MacBook Pro. And so kind of hardware-wise, that's basically the setup. As far as the video recording that I do for Navigate Life Radio that goes on YouTube, I actually have it's a suction cup phone holder that you would normally put in a car, but I actually have it on the window in front of me. And then I just record the video on my iPhone 6S Plus. And then I will pull that audio and sync it up. I mean, I'll pull that video off the phone and sync it up with the audio that I record on the MacBook Pro in post. And then that's where I'm kind of creating everything, is through the software after that.
Nice. And do you have guests? Do you ever interview guests for your show?
No, I haven't gotten into guests yet, partly because so the purpose of the podcast Navigate Life Radio is for my private practice. And so the reason I do it is because I want people who are interested in, looking into getting some psychotherapy or something like that. I want them to be able to hear me and see me, because I figure if they can't stand, 10, 15 minutes worth of video of me, they're probably not going to like sitting across from me for 45 minutes per session. So it's just me talking for about 10 to 15 minutes. And at some point I do want to expand the show into something like that, where I'm kind of interviewing outside guests, and the show becomes kind of a general resource for people. But right now it's kind of to, pull people in the Nashville area who are looking to find a professional counselor.
Nice. All right. And you're might talk about some other things. Maybe you could talk about history. Yep. Barry, you want to talk some history?
All right. First, the Incas.
Oh, that's one of my favorites. It's hard to slip that one in. All right. So let's post-production. All right. You got in your MacBook Pro, what's your software and what do you do after it's recorded?
Yeah, so I'm using to record the audio I use, and in fact, I'm using it to record my end right now, Chris. I'm using Audio-Hijack by Rogue Amoeba software, and I'm actually thinking about getting their loopback software as well pretty soon. And if you're on a Mac and you're looking at doing some podcasting, you've really got to look into Rogue Amoeba's software, because it's amazing. Just the ease of use in terms of being able to set up what it is you want to record. I mean, you can create, simple mix minuses and combined audio feeds and multiple USB microphones if you want to go that route. I mean, the software is absolutely incredible. So I record everything into Audio-Hijack.
Okay.
And I record it into WAV format. And so that's the audio. As far as the video, I'll pull that from the iPhone. And then I'm pulling the WAV file from Audio-Hijack, and I'm pulling the video file from the phone, and I'm putting them into Screenflow. And so I use Screenflow to create the video, to kind of sync up the audio and video, and add logos and text, and sharpen the video, kind of that kind of stuff. And so my video editing is mostly done in Screenflow. So for video, that pretty much takes care of that. As far as the audio, I use Logic Pro 10. And so what I'll do is I've got a template that's already created for my podcast. So I can just kind of yank the audio, plug it into the template that I've already got created, and just kind of trim the ends. And I hit publish from that point on. Well, not publish into the RSS feed, but that's kind of the podcast episode there. And from that, what I'll do is I'll take the audio and put it into Auphonic, because Auphonic is just fantastic at being able to level out the loudness, from the different audio sources, and you can export it into kind of a common file. So I export out to MP3 at -16 LUFS, and Auphonic kind of takes care of all of that magic in the background. I don't know how they do it, but whatever the wizards over at Auphonic have done, they've created some magic over there. So I just pull the audio, and then that goes to my RSS feed. So that's kind of the basics of my overall workflow right there.
Nice. And you said minus 16 left, so I guess you're publishing in stereo.
I am. So I try to record in stereo, publish in stereo. Part of the reason for that, and I'm good with mono, but part of the reason for that is that I also stream my podcast on iHeartRadio and TuneIn and the like. And, with people kind of listening to those already in their car, their headphones and things, they're kind of used to a stereo format, right? Because the music and such. So I record out to stereo. Yep.
That's actually one of the best reasons I've heard for publishing in stereo. That, well, first of all, it sounds better. We all know that. But second of all, it's like, yeah, if your podcast is in these directories like iHeart and TuneIn Radio, people are used to stereo. If something comes on that's mono, they're definitely going to notice. They're going to be like, "Oh, what's that?
Yep.
Why is it? Oh, sounds
yeah,
funny."
Why is it doing that? Mm-hmm. That's it. So I publish out to stereo.
Nice. And Auphonic is just a wonderful tool. Yeah, you're using a lot of wonderful tools. So let's go back.
Okay.
Let's go back all the way to the mic and the Rode Broadcaster. Okay, this is a mic. Okay, Arik Levy was on this show a bunch of sessions ago, and he was searching for mics like a maniac. And then when he found the Rode Broadcaster, he wrote me this email. He's like, "Oh my God, this is it. This is the one." He found his mic, and I heard you on this mic, and I like it too, but I've never had one. And I know you actually in the email offered to send me that one and say, "Hey, you try it, check it out." So anyway, that's a mic that I really want to try. Is that so out of all the mics you've ever tried, let's just cut to the chase. Out of all the mics you've ever tried, obviously you're using the Rode Broadcaster right now. Yep. Is that your favorite one, or which one is your favorite?
So I'm finding that I'm rotating between 3 different microphones. It's the Rode Broadcaster, the Shure SM7B, and the Audio-Technica BP40, which, not a lot of people have tried because it's a fairly new microphone. It's only like a year or 2 old at this point. Oh. But that mic is really good. But if I if somebody forced me down to one, because I've got like 10 microphones here to choose from. But if somebody said, "No, you have to pick one, and it'll be the only one you ever have for the rest of your life," I'm choosing the Rode Broadcaster.
Oh, really? All right. So now this is, but here's my question, and definitely a selfish question, because in my space where I record, it's not like a real studio, but it's a larger room. It's a little larger room. It has carpeting, and I have foam up behind me. But the HVAC unit is across the house, across the basement, and it turns on and off, from time to time. And when I use a dynamic mic, like right now, I'm using the vintage RE20 that Mark Johansson sold to me.
And I've got one of those coming in. I've got an RE20 coming in that I'm going to review soon. So
okay, a new RE20.
Be on the lookout for that one. Yep.
Cool. So when the HVAC unit turns on, it doesn't really get picked up by dynamic mics, because I have the mic obviously facing the opposite direction as the HVAC unit. So like the HVAC unit is sort of in front of me, if you will. So
the
mic
you get
is
the rear rejection.
Yeah. So I get the rear rejection, right. But whenever I have one condenser mic, it's a Avantone CV12, actually. It's a knockoff of a AKG C12. That's condenser. It's a large diaphragm condenser, and I put it in cardioid mode, and I do put it in the same place where this mic is, but when the HVAC unit turns on, man, that mic picks it up like a lot. So this is my fear, that if I try the Rode Broadcaster, it's a condenser, and I know it's cardioid too, and it actually it's an end address mic too. You talk into the end of it, not the side of it. But I'm wondering, do you think that would pick up something like way in the background? Is it really that sensitive of a condenser mic?
It's not. So I think the reason why podcasters haven't kind of looked at the Rode Broadcaster before is because it's a pretty expensive microphone. I mean, at retail, it's like $420. So people kind of don't want to spend $420 and find out for themselves whether it's going to work or not.
Right.
So I think there's a lot of reticence from people to kind of really test it out. But I want to put people's minds at ease. The Rode Broadcaster is actually really great at rejecting that room noise, it comes with a built-in high-pass filter switch already that cuts at below 80 hertz. So in terms of like kind of that general filtering out noise, it actually does a really good job. And I think because of the design, I don't know how they did it, but because of the design, it doesn't act like a typical vocal mic condenser. The vocal microphones are usually kind of they're the vertical and you speak into the side of it. And they do that, right? Like the Blue Yeti is a good example. You're actually supposed to speak into the side of the Blue Yeti, but what everybody finds is that it's so sensitive that it picks up everything around it, even in cardioid mode.
Right.
But the Rode Broadcaster doesn't really do that. And I think it's because it's a broadcast mic, just the build and the style of the mic doesn't allow for that kind of 360-degree pickup, right? And what I did in one of my recent videos is I compared the Rode Broadcaster to the Shure SM7B. And I had both of them. I had a fan going in the background right behind me, so it was actually the microphone facing towards the fan. And I tested it with no high pass switch on the mics, and then I turned on the high pass switches on each mic. And if you listen to the video, you'll actually find that the Rode Broadcaster and the SM7B reject the fan noise at the same loudness. Like they reject it the same. And so if you're considering a condenser mic like the Broadcaster for podcasting, I would absolutely go ahead and say, yeah, go forward with it, because I think it's a little more sensitive, picks up the broad frequency range, right? But I don't think you have to really be afraid of it, because it just does a fantastic job at noise rejection in general. And I think that if you even do some minor treatment in a room, you've maybe got carpet in the room, maybe some curtains on windows, that kind of thing, you're not going to have any issues at all. It's really great.
That's cool. So now I got to try this mic.
And Rode is not paying me to say any of this. I did want to say, Chris, I buy all my microphones myself.
Really?
So, yeah. So if anybody's got questions about that, where they kind of go, well, maybe the companies are sending him the microphone to test out or something like that, I don't do that. I buy them with my own money.
That's pretty cool. As long as you can afford it.
Well, yeah. Well, my wonderful wife, Michelle, I'm going to mention her on the podcast, so you can't edit her out now, right, Chris?
Never. Come on.
So she's really good to me in kind of giving me free reign to kind of have one hobby that I'm allowed to go a little crazy with, right? So, 10 years ago it was golfing. She let me do that, And so about maybe 6 months ago, I went to her and I said, I really want to do these microphone tests. And she said, okay. And I said, but they're not cheap. Like, microphones are not cheap, especially as you keep getting into, kind of the Neumanns and these types of mics. And she said, hey, like if we can afford it and you want to do it, then just go ahead. So she kind of gave me the green light to go ahead and do it. Yeah.
That's great. And that also brings up the fact that when you buy good gear, it retains most of its value.
Yeah, absolutely. So if at any point I kind of like, if the channel stops, meaning I've kind of reviewed everything that needs to be reviewed, then I can always turn around and sell the microphones that I don't want anymore, and I can recoup a lot of that money. Yeah, definitely.
Totally. All right. So you got the mic going into.
It's going into the DBX.
Right, the DBX 286. I was wondering if we should talk about more of the mics first. I think we should.
Yeah, man. Yeah, let's talk about mics.
All right, let's do it.
That's probably why people are listening to the episode. Yeah, oh yeah.
Yeah, oh yeah.
And they were cussing up a storm.
Whoa.
Profanities left, profanities right.
I don't know. I wanted to play yeah, oh yeah, but I hit that button, so.
That's some pretty bad profundities.
I haven't played that one in a while, Barry. I'm actually looking for a new Barry one that sometimes my wife says things like a little wacky, and I'll be like, wow, really? Wow. and I remember, and when I said it, I remembered that in one of those, I don't know if I recorded it, but I know Barry would say stuff like that. I'd be like, hey, Barry, can you believe this? And he'd be like, wow. Wow. And so I got to get Barry saying that.
You got to get that.
That's a good one to have. All right. So on your website, podcastmic.com, you have all the mic reviews. You have like a separate post for each video, right?
Yes.
Okay.
Yep.
And then you also have the YouTube channel. So, all right. So you got the Rode Broadcaster versus the Shure SM7B, which you talked about. You got the Heil PR40 versus the Audio-Technica BP40.
Yes.
Talk about those two mics.
Yeah. So the Heil PR40 is kind of considered the holy grail of podcasting microphones. And I'm going to shoot straight here, Chris. I'm not sure why it is.
Right.
I'm actually not a big fan of it. And I think that what it is that the PR40 does a great job at low-end presence. And so I think that when people talk into it, they hear that kind of, radio broadcast sound, and their voice kind of goes deeper, and they go, yeah, I love that. That sounds great. The problem is that with podcasting, most people are listening on a variety of headsets and speakers and the like. And what can happen with the PR40 is it can just end up sounding kind of muddy and overprocessed. And so that's kind of why I'm not a big fan of the mic. I think that if you've got a lot of equipment and you know what you're doing and you can really get some good sound out of a microphone, the PR40 is fine. But I think for a typical broadcaster, it's a little tough.
Yeah, and I also agree that many people seem to think that that's like the best podcasting mic, but inevitably people who either test mics or who know what they're hearing, and like engineers and stuff, I don't know any of them that say that that's the best mic. So.
Right. No, when you're looking at broadcast studios, the two most popular are the SM7B and the RE20 that you're using.
Right.
And I think, so that's actually part of the reason I'm getting the RE20 next is to do a review of that mic and then do the comparison on kind of these two venerable microphones in the broadcasting industry, right? To compare the two. So I'm kind of looking forward to that one. But back to the PR40 and the BP40, Audio-Technica, they're doing a great job with their microphones. They came out with the BP40, I guess, a couple of years ago. And I got excited to try this microphone. And when I got it, first of all, the mic looks fantastic. It's this all black. It looks very kind of Darth Vader microphone. And it's got a foam windscreen built in. So it's actually got a foam disc that's built in under the mesh grill. That's about 1.5 inches thick. And so you kind of don't need to cover it up with any foam windscreen or anything like that. It's got a high-pass filter switch built into it, which the PR40 does not have. The PR40 is just plug and go. There's no switches on it or anything. But what Audio-Technica did with the BP40, and I think they named it that way in order to kind of get a microphone to automatically compare to the PR40 from Heil, is that they already built in presence boost into the mic. So if you look at its frequency response, it already boosts in the mid-range for that kind of presence boost. And so the microphones, even though they're comparable in terms of price and generally performance, I love the BP40 because of that built-in presence boost. It's got a lot of clarity for a dynamic mic. It looks freaking cool, and it just does. And so it's also an easy mic I've found in post to be able to kind of use the EQ, kind of tweaking the EQ to make it sound how you want. I found that there are some microphones that are a bit difficult, but that's not one of them.
Okay. Yeah, I know what you mean. Some mics, you record it and then you're just trying to manipulate it, and for some reason it's difficult to EQ for some reason.
It is, yep.
Which usually means that you need to, get a little medieval and, really, get a lot of different bands going, really spend a lot of time finding different frequencies, good frequencies and bad frequencies. But that just takes a lot of time. And it's like, why bother? The golden rule, one of the golden rules in music recording is use the right microphone first.
That's it.
Do it right first. Get, if you put a mic on an instrument and it doesn't sound right, try another mic. Don't reach for an EQ first. You try another mic first. And when you get a mic that's like almost perfect by itself, then you just need to slightly EQ just a little bit and it's perfect.
That's it. And that's what I think podcasters should do anyway, Chris, is start with the mic and start with the hardware and say, okay, is this the sound that I want? And so that you're not messing with it in post. I have no background in audio engineering. I have found that I actually do like messing with the software and, to kind of get different sounds. And if I do this, then, what sound does this create? And so, getting to kind of test it all out has always been kind of fun for me. I like that. But I know that most podcasters, they just want to record and publish as easy as possible and just get their content out there. And it is going to start with the microphone. Like if you can just find the right mic, then you're 80% done.
Okay, it's time for me to predict the future.
Okay.
With regards to your next obsessive hobby.
Okay.
Plugins.
You know what, Chris?
Yeah, baby.
You're dead on. Yeah. Oh yeah. You nailed it actually. So I'm looking at Isotope actually has a deal right now with their Neutron Elements bundle, and so I'm giving that one a serious consideration because it's got some stuff in it that looks like it's really good, like D-clicks and D-hums, and so I'm kind of looking at that plugin bundle next. And there is that part of me, Chris, and maybe it's not a good idea, but I would love to be able to replace the DBX with a software plugin, but but just the hardware, it works. Like it works right now. And so there's that part of me that doesn't want to mess with it. What are your thoughts?
Well, there's a couple ways you can go there. So first of all, you're using really good mics. You're going into a very good channel strip, which the DBX 286. It has a nice mic pre. It has a couple tone controls. It has a little, compressor that's, mostly transparent, which is good. So that's really good. If you wanted to not use that piece of hardware, not use the DBX 286, do it in software. Well, you can, there's a few things you can do. I mean, Universal Audio makes these audio interfaces where they have mic pre's on the audio interface and you can plug your microphone into the audio interface. But you can, within the software, you can actually choose from different mic preamps for that mic. So it's plugged into one socket, but you can say, oh, I want to try, an API mic pre, and you click on that, and then you can hear that. Then you can say, oh, I want to try an old Neve 1073, and you could switch it to that. And so Universal Audio has modeled these classic mic pre's, and apparently it sounds really good. The other way you can go, which I just found out, literally yesterday, is when I was talking to this guy who's a music engineer here locally. King Richard, by the way. King Richard, that's who I was talking to in Sunshine Studios here in Colorado Springs. He was talking about Slate. Slate makes plugins, and they also make this thing called the Slate VMS, which is Slate Virtual. Yeah, it's the virtual microphone system. Okay, now this is from Slate. Slate makes a lot of plugins. Virtual microphone system. And now here's the deal. They give you this mic. It's a large diaphragm condenser mic.
Oh, I think I've heard of this. Yeah.
And it's very high quality. It's a very high quality mic, which is apparently very neutral. Just neutral. Then you plug that into this other piece that they give you that's a mic pre, which is also very clear and neutral. And then so that's what you get. You get the mic and you get the mic pre, and then you run that into your computer, however you do that. Okay. Then once it's in the computer, you can switch between sounds of vintage microphones, like a U47, a U67, a C12. And there's a video. They literally A/B'd it next to... Oh, and you get to pick the preamp too. Like they have two preamps. One is a model of a Neve 1073. The other is a model of actually a preamp, which I don't know what it is. Maybe it's a Demeter or something like that. It's a tube preamp. Anyway, you can choose the vintage mic and the tube preamp, and it will model that. And they A/B'd it next to the actual hardware in this video. They had singers stand there and sing, and they'd go back and forth between this is the VMS system and then this is the actual vintage mic. And man, it is close. Wow.
Oh, sounds like the microphone to beat all microphones.
But it is a large diaphragm condenser, so for podcasters, it's definitely way overkill for podcasters. That's not even a question. But that's interesting. The other thing you could do is Slate. I learned this about Slate, that they have plugins that model preamps and all this stuff, so you can just record it your own way right now. You could record it just like you are right now, Rode Broadcaster, through the DBX 286 into your computer. Then you could apply a classic mic pre, which is going to color that sound.
Ooh.
And yeah, that's really interesting. And they also have, EQs and compressors, that model vintage gear as well. And the benefit of that is you're coloring the sound. It's not just, I want to, like, if you apply this mic pre, it's not acting as a mic pre. You don't need the boost. You already recorded it, but it's just going to color the sound with that vintage, warmer, thicker, fuller sound.
Wow.
And there's a bunch of different things you can use. So and so the last thing I found out is that Slate, apparently they have this plan, or they call it the everything bundle. You get all their plugins for $15 a month.
Oh, a subscription model.
It's a subscription. $15 a month. There's got to be, I don't even know, at least 25 or 30 or 40, maybe more plugins. And I'm not ready to buy that because I just bought all these other classic plugins, which I haven't actually talked about yet. I think I'm. Oh, you know what? I did talk about them. It's so confusing recording episodes in advance and then knowing knowing I'm gonna record one next week that's gonna air before this. That's like weird math to do in your head on the fly, Travis. Right? Very difficult. Anyway, the Slate 15 a month. I mean, that sounds really interesting.
Now. I'm looking at this. I've just pulled this up. This looks really good.
Anyway, plugins is. You think microphones is a rabbit hole? Plugins is off the charts, dude. It's just off. It's not even in the same galaxy. It's scary, actually.
So maybe that's the podcastmic.com Generation 2, where I'm just reviewing plugins off of the virtual microphone system.
Dude, you could actually even do it with what you're doing. Like, you could take your Rode Broadcaster and you could make a little video and say, look, I'm going to apply this vintage plugin, this vintage mic free plugin, and here it sounds. I'm going to apply this vintage plugin. See how that sounds? I mean, it's endless.
All right. Okay. So and you must have guessed this right because I mentioned I liked tweaking and tweaking and tweaking and just kind of listening to the differences. And I think if you like that, then yeah, plugins seems like the natural extension.
Yeah, it's crazy. So yeah, so that would be and those would be some alternatives to the DBX 286S, which is a very good unit. It really is. For podcasters, it really hits the nail on the head. I've recommended it to several clients, especially if you're using a mic like an SM7B that requires a lot of gain. You can't stick a mic like that into like a really cheap Behringer mixer and try to crank the preamp. Don't do that.
I get people asking me, one of the most common questions I get is they see the review for the SM7B and they send me a message on YouTube, they comment or they send me an email, and their question is wait a minute, you mean that SM7B was just going into your 2i2? Like, that seems pretty good. So
right.
Really all I need to get is those two things. And I'm going, no. I was just showing kind of what it can do because, Podcaster 2i2 is pretty common audio interface for podcasters. And so I was actually just showing what the SM7B like would sound like going into a 2i2, but I definitely wouldn't recommend it. I had to boost it like over 100% in post just to be able to get a normal loudness out of it. And so I think what I'm going to do is I'll do a video pretty soon on the SM7B and kind of do a pre and post review of it, meaning this is what it actually sounds like going in. Like, this is how loud it is. This is the hiss you'll get from the, from the preamp, like all this stuff, and then boost it and say, see, you in post, you can kind of mess with it. But people really don't believe it when you tell them, like, this thing takes a lot of gain. It needs a lot of clean gain, and you just can't overstate it. It really does. That SM7B is gain hungry. And, if you look at a microphone and you go, God, $400, that's a lot for a mic. If you think $400 is a lot for a mic, don't get the SM7B, because you're going to be spending a lot more on the back end to really get what you want out of that microphone. But if you can get it, then then it's fantastic. I mean, if you can throw a good preamp, throw a cloud lifter at it, kind of throw all that stuff at it in order to get some good sound out of it. If you're willing to spring for it, it's a great mic.
Totally. So I want to ask you about the Audio-Technica 875R.
Oh, yeah.
When I saw you review this mic, I had never seen this. I had never seen or heard of this mic. And you put it forth as a podcasting mic, and I was like, wow, that's interesting. And it looks like this little skinny, it's almost like a little mini shotgun mic.
It is. It's only like 6.5 inches long. So it's a mini shotgun. And it is not expensive as far as kind of XLR mics go. I think it's $165, $170, something like that.
Wow.
And it was the reason I originally took a look at it is because that is the microphone they use on the Fizzle Show, which is kind of an entrepreneur podcast. And when they did a mic shootout, it was one of the microphones that came out on top. And so I thought, well, I'll check this microphone out. And so I've had it for a little while. I like it because it's versatile. You can use it as a put it on a mini boom and do video work with it. And so I've recorded some videos with it. And as far as like just kind of an up close podcasting microphone to record audio, it works really well for that also. So you can kind of be into this mic for not a lot of money and get a lot out of the microphone because you can use it for a lot of different stuff.
Right. So is it a condenser mic, and also is it hypercardioid?
It is a condenser mic. I believe it's hypercardioid. I mean, typical shotgun mic, right, is kind of hypercardioid anyway, because it has to be. Just the design of the microphone, it's intended to pick up what's directly in front of it.
Right.
So, but yes, it's a condenser mic. And if you listen to it, it's got a lot of that low end, which is interesting because Audio-Technica says they've got a high pass filter built into it already, because I don't think it starts recording or its frequency range starts at something like 60 or 70 hertz. Like for a condenser, that's actually pretty high.
Right.
And yet it still has some low end, which is really interesting. But as far as kind of like if you're looking for an all-around mic to get into because you want to get into video, you want to get into some video recording, you want it to go along with your podcasting, I would take a look at that microphone. It's a pretty interesting choice.
One of the concerns I wanted to ask you about was if it is a hypercardioid mic, which means it's really picking up mostly what's right in front of it, and if you move to the left or right, let's say a foot, the level of your voice is going to drop a lot. Did you find that it was really like, did you really have to stay right in front of it, or was it a little bit forgiving? What was your experience?
Well, using the DBX, because that's what I plug all my mics into, to just, for my own personal use, the compression on the DBX is pretty good. So going off mic is not really a problem if you've got some good compression on your microphone. But as far as if you're just kind of plugging it straight into a preamp, yeah, it'll drop off pretty quick, and the side rejection is really good on it. I mean, as is typical kind of for a shotgun mic. But if you use it as a podcasting microphone, if you just kind of keep the mic just a few inches from your mouth, then I find that kind of moving around it doesn't hurt it that much because it's so close to you that it picks up kind of whatever it needs to pick up. So you can still move around it a little bit and it'd be okay. Oh,
that makes sense. Okay, good. So one of the other mics was the Beyer Dynamic M99. And this is another one of those that it's a broadcasting mic, right? Or it's also a kick drum mic, I think.
It is, yeah. So it's a kick drum mic, and it's kick drum and vocal. That's kind of how they put it out there. The M99, I think people started looking at it when a site called Recording Hacks did kind of their podcasting shootout back in like 2011 or something like that. It's years ago now. And if you listen to the audio for each of the recordings, the M99 just sounds amazing. And so it kind of, I think, has this little bit of underground reputation for being a quality microphone for podcasting and broadcasting. But the problem is because it's an expensive microphone, but it's also not very common in the States. It's more common as a broadcasting microphone over in Europe. They, mostly because of cost. It's cheaper over there for them to get an M99, whereas here it's cheaper for us to get an SM7B. The SM7B is too expensive for them over there. So the M99 is actually pretty popular in Europe. And I thought, I got to get this microphone to test this thing out. It's actually one of the maybe 3 reviews on YouTube for this microphone.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. What I got out of it, though, listening to it is it's kind of like the PR40. If you like a radio processed sound to your voice, if you like that, then the M99 is for you.
That's interesting. Good way to sum it up.
Yep.
All right, so before we have to go, which is pretty soon, I wanted to just touch on your post-production. So in terms of, we talked about that you actually record it in Audio-Hijack.
Yes.
Okay, so that program actually lets you record audio. That's good to know. And I know for Macs, that's a tremendous piece of software. Everyone raves about Audio-Hijack. Apparently you can just do anything you want with audio.
anything you want to do with audio. I'm going to do a video actually for the channel soon, Chris, on using Audio-Hijack instead of creating a complicated mix minus. So right now podcasters are, they're buying mixers and they're buying recorders and they want to use all these different audio inputs. They want to use their iPhone for sound effects, all sorts of things. And so people are kind of creating this complicated mix minus where they've got, 6 different wires plugging in and out of everything, and it gets tricky to do. But in Audio-Hijack, you don't have to do that. You actually just set it up as a separate recording. They use blocks is what it is. And so all you have to do is set up one block recording your microphone and set up another block that records Skype or FaceTime or Chrome or any other application. And you set it up as a separate block and you run another block back into your headphones so you can hear the other person. And now you're recording multi-track. You can actually record multiple tracks so that each audio source has its own track. And Audio-Hijack is, you just hit one record button and it just pulls in all the audio at once. So you don't need all the kind of complicated wiring and things like that in order to record quality Skype call. And it's great compared to a lot of the other recorders out there, like Ecamm Software is a Skype recorder program that's pretty popular with podcasters, in that you don't, every time Skype updates, like Audio-Hijack doesn't care. It doesn't, Ecamm, you have to like update it if Skype updates, and it can get tricky and kind of fail on you sometimes. Like Audio-Hijack doesn't care about any of that. It just, for whatever, I don't know what they're putting in the program, but you tell it, this is what I want it to record, and it records it.
See, to me, this is like, the way you're describing it, this is the first time I've understood that possibly using a Mac and using Audio-Hijack is a way where you could do everything in one box. On one computer,
everything in one box.
You could connect different people from Skype or from Chrome or from Zencaster and all that, and record everyone on their own separate track. The only thing is, I'm guessing if you did a 3-way Skype call, the other 2 people on the call would be recorded on one track, obviously, right? Because Skype only has one output.
I think that's right. I haven't tried it with multiple people on Skype. I haven't tried that part.
Right. So then, anyway, so for my business, I mean, I have clients where I connect the host and the guest and everything. And I have, you've probably seen pictures that I have this studio with 4 or 5 computers around me, and I connect people through different computers, and I run it all through an actual analog mixer. And then I run it into a computer and record everything separate. But I know, and I've had the feeling for a while that the ultimate solution is to do everything within one box, right?
Well, and actually what Audio Hijack can also do is it can run plugins in between your microphone and the recording. So you set up your microphone as an input, and then you can set up your plugins in between the chain, and then kind of set up your plugins how you want your sound to be, and then it'll record your audio already having run through the plugins. You don't have to do any of that in post.
Yeah, that's really cool. The question I would have there is, how's the monitoring? Like, how the level meter itself? Are the meters good? Can you really see what's going on?
You can, because it comes with a metering block that you can actually put in there, so that as you're recording, you can look at Audio Hijack and watch the meters live on the recording.
Got it. All right. So last thing, any EQ or compression or any plugins you use in post-production, what do you use?
No. So because the 286 does pretty much everything that I want it to do, when I throw it into Logic Pro, I actually just add a little silver to the audio, and that's it.
Silver meaning?
So if you go into the Exciter in Logic Pro, then it's got a few settings for some silver and some sizzle and like kind of the presets for the Exciter. And so what I do is I just use the silver preset in the Exciter plugin in Logic, and I'm done.
That is cool. The exciters are really cool. And you can use exciters on the low end too, and even mid-range. But exciters on the low end is... Well, no, you know what? In the DBX 286S, that's what it is. That's kind of what those the low-frequency contour and the high-frequency contour...
Yeah. So when I've tried those on my mics, I guess the advice is, if you're going to use the low end and high end on the DBX 286, you really have to use it sparingly. You can't you can't throw the knob over very far. And for me personally, I found I don't really like the way that I sound when I use those. So I actually I'm not using them right now.
Nice.
Those are turned off. And so that's why I kind of throw that silver on at the end, is it gives me that little bit of high end boost that the DBX can do, but I like the sound coming from Logic a bit better than I do the DBX.
Yeah, and you hit on something good, that especially on the DBX 286 with the low frequency and the high frequency contour knobs. Yeah, you gotta go easy. That is a classic amateur mistake, especially the low end. Adding way too much low end. We've all heard shows where the guy, not only he's using like a radio style mic, but he's got the low end cranked, and it's actually hard to understand. It's difficult to it's not intelligible.
Well, and people, I think when podcasters have got to understand that a lot of the headphones that people are using, and even in car stereos, people have the bass cranked up, and headphones already come with they're already created with a high low end, like they've already boosted the low end, Beats headphones and stuff like this. It's meant for music. It's not meant for voice, for podcast listening. And so, you kind of have to create your audio around the person who's listening. And when the majority of headphones are already, deep bass and stuff like this already built in, you actually don't want a lot of low end on your microphone. You need a little bit more mid-range and high end, because you're going to have to compensate for those headphones that are starting to muffle your voice because they're so bassy.
Yeah, wow. That's a whole topic in podcast engineering school: listening and hearing and speakers and monitoring, especially monitoring, because, when we record and we mix podcasts and we do post-production on podcasts, it's so important how you're listening to what you're hearing, whether it's on headphones, what headphones, how are those headphones, speakers, what speakers, how are those speakers, are they whatever. So anyway, that's a whole another topic. We've talked about it on other sessions here as well. Travis, we got to go, man.
Got to go.
This is not good. Barry, this was awesome, right?
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Telling you, Navigate Life Radio. That's where folks can hear you. I listened to one of your shows, Navigate Life Radio, and I love what you're talking about. And I know you're into mindfulness, and I'm into meditation. And sometime maybe I don't usually have guests on the Mystic Show anymore, but who knows? Maybe we can chat about all that sometime too.
I'd love to do that. And actually, I think people might like the most recent episode I recorded. I don't know when this episode's coming out, but the most recent episode for Navigate Life Radio is Why Are We Attracted to Crazy?
That's good. What does that have an episode number?
It's episode 52.
All right, 52. Why are we attracted to crazy?
Yeah, so people asking me, why is it that we're attracted to people, people who are quote unquote crazy? Kind of the outlandish, the people who kind of run hot or cold in the relationships, that kind of thing.
Cool. Hey, Barry, you've seen podcastmike.com, right? You like it?
Oh, forget it.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Podcastmike.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Podcastmike.com. Travis Hill, thank you, man. This has been great.
And Chris, this was fantastic. Thanks, man.
All right. And we'll see you all next week. Thank you for listening. Again, podcastengineeringschool.com. You can find all our previous sessions and a lot of different resources there as well. And of course, you can, email me anytime you want if you have questions. Thank you for listening. And as always, you know what to say, Travis. Although wait until the music's gonna right here. Sound great!
Sound great.
Walk away from me well, and you can't play that part so well. Why do you play it out on me now? You like to lose control well. It's quite a feeling, isn't it? They're floating, drifting down now. You tell me that you found something better. How should I respond to that? It's a lie. I don't wanna hear it. What do you want me to say? It's a lie. I don't wanna hear it. You react some angry. You change your attitude well. You say I just don't get it now. You say your eyes so far away now. Gave up on me well, so change your game and give away. You say I wouldn't understand now. You tell me that you found something better. How should I respond to that? Oh yeah, I say now, it's a lie. I don't wanna hear it. What do you want me to say? It's a lie. I don't wanna hear it. You react so angry. I want you to know you will never always be true. I've gone over all we've been through. Doesn't seem that long a time now. Things we did still hold that meaning. And does it mean it's still the same? You're pushing me away. The work your theories now where you're getting worked up on your now. The work your way around somehow now. Yes, it hurts me now where that you don't talk to me enough. Now that these words have split apart now. Tell me that you found something better. How should I respond to that? Oh yeah,